All right. Hello. Hello. Welcome. Happy Valentine's Day. Thank you for joining us for this Valentine's Day webinar. My name is Lee Adkins. I'm the Chief Partnership Officer at Amplified Solutions. And the lovely Chris McDonough, our COO, is joining me.
Hi,
What's up, Chris?
Hi, how are you?
I'm good.
I'm excited to talk about this today because this was really important to me. I used to help run a brokerage, and we grew it from about 50 agents to 250 at its height. And knowing how to do the things that we're going to be talking about today was so important to running an organization like that and growing an organization like that. So I feel like this is going to be really helpful stuff for people today.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. And two, I know sometimes we talked about that we don't talk about this, but I was in a similar situation running a team operationally a little while back, and really focused on a lot of these things too, positive reinforcement, making sure people know what to do in the system, the things you expect them to do, so you get the data and information that you need. So we're going to dive right into the topic. I am going to drop a quick link right now to our YouTube channel, which has bajillions of videos, tactical, strategic, a lot of them follow up boss, all real estate, operational. So check that out. Give us a subscribe and or turn on alerts if that's your thing. That would be awesome. But I think Chris, one of the go ahead. You got to press something pressing.
I was just thinking that what we're really getting at here is helping you step up from management into true leadership. And that's something, whether your name's on the front door or you are a team lead of 5, anywhere in between, or maybe you work for someone whose name's on the front door and you're one of those mid-level managers. Any one of you can use these skills to level up into a leadership position, even if it's just by your acts and not by title. And that's what we really want to encourage you to do, is get out of that management headspace and start thinking about your follow-up boss, your CRM, like um, there's something larger than what it is. Because if you get, of course, the details matters. The devil's in the details. I actually thought that earlier today because I was wound up about something and I was like, we got to get these details right. And helping people understand how all of these things fit together is going to help them better understand the details. And if they understand how it all fits, they'll get those details right more often, I feel like.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I just want to add to that. I think the other thing, and I know we all know this, especially as business owners and we're doing lots of things, we've got all the hats, right? At one point, some people are even still in production and doing this. And we get that. But I think it's really important to be really clear about what role you're in when. Like, am I doing management stuff now where it's like, sometimes I think of it good cop, bad cop. The manager is the bad cop. The manager's, hey, you didn't make your calls, you didn't do your thing. The leader comes in, hey, cool thing, teach motivational, teach you something cool, and then they're out. They're not checking how many phone calls you made. But I think again, if you're wearing all these hats yourself, just getting clear about which you're doing when can be really helpful. Okay, now I'm manager hat. I got to do my one-on-ones, and you didn't make your calls. Okay, now I'm leader hat. I got to set a good example and be available for people and motivate them. So just another important piece of this is if you're doing all the things and you don't have a staff of 10 people where they're allotted to each role, then just be mindful of which you're doing when.
I like that. I like
And how
that.
would you define leadership, Chris? Is being a leader, is there more, I mean, the good cop, bad cop thing kind of works, but
Well, leadership in real estate, I mean, it does look different at every organization. And it's something that is very hard to define. And I think that's why so many people struggle with it, because there's no one true. I mean, I'm sure someone's like, well, Merriam-Webster says
right.
leadership's defined as.
I bet
Someone's
it's
out
got
there with
multiple
their red
definitions
pen.
anyway.
But I do think that leadership, a little bit of what I said earlier. It's looking at the bigger picture. It's trying to build a foundation that you can build off of and not getting really caught up in those finer details. I remember once I was with one of the CEOs, one of the many, I sound like a job hopper, one of the many CEOs I've worked for. And I said, you're the visionary. We need you staring at the horizon instead of your feet. Like, let me do all the feet, let me do all the feet stuff. Let me do all the little stuff, all the granular stuff. And you carve that path.
Yeah.
And so I think that understanding your role, whether it's the visionary, whether you are still the visionary and the implementer, knowing, to your point earlier, what your role is and why it's important, and making the highest and best use of not only your time, but everyone else's time, getting the people in the right seats, rowing the boat in the same direction. So building people up, figuring out the process, making sure you've got Chris here and Lee here and Bridget here, all of those things going. I think that's one of the hallmarks of true leadership. And what you didn't hear in that is, having the business focus on yourself. Like, everything I said just now was focused on other people, building people up, increasing their skill sets, teaching them how to do things. That's something that we internally in our business are focusing really hard on right now, is making sure that the people at the top, if you will, aren't the only ones who know how to do things, so that we can grow and scale our business.
Yep, absolutely. So, and then just one more quick note, it's also really important. I know some people like are really deep in Follow Up Boss. Some people are kind of like, I have it, but I don't have to mess with it, all that. It's important that you understand some of these things at a core level as a leader, because you lose a lot of credibility if you're like, oh yeah, that's, well, whatever, and it's not accurate. So again, you don't have to be a master of the system, but understanding more of this and how it works is certainly also key to being able to speak intelligently. If you're looking at the system and you're not using it and you don't have anything in it, it's kind of hard to criticize or make suggestions to other people for the things that they're doing. I know, again, different for everybody, all the above, but I thought it was important to mention that. So let's dive into the tactics of this, Chris. So what we want to do, one of the big things, obviously, with the focus on Follow Up Boss, is just actually checking and looking at your Follow Up Boss reporting, which hopefully is under the reporting tab in Follow Up Boss. But we're going to run through a couple of kind of quick things here, some detail on what to look for. Something else that's really cool that I'll mention as we go through is that these generate unique URLs. And it's something really cool that you can either bookmark or put into an email template. There's ways to find easy buttons to get to the reports you want, because there are a lot of options in Follow Up Boss for reporting. So number one, you need to feed it good data to get good reporting. And then number two, you got to figure out what you're even trying to look at, because there is a lot of stuff. I like starting on this agent activity tab, just reporting agent activity. Normally by default, it's on nothing, which is where I want it for now, but I want it on total lead count. This would be probably the normal default if you just go here the first time. The settings over here at the right are very important. I have this on all time because it's a demo account. There's not 20 calls that happened yesterday, so I'm on all time. But I would recommend that you set this to a consistent number. If you're going to check it once a month, put it on last 30 days. You're going to check it weekly, put it on every 7 days. So you're looking at apples to apples every time you look at it. You're not like, oh, we had 300 leads, and the next week you're like, oh, we had 20 leads. Oh, I'm on last 2 days. So keeping it in a congruent setting will allow you to really almost like each week go, oh, cool, we're up this week. Oh, we're down this week. Just kind of gives you a more of a starting point. There's a lot you can customize here. We're not going to get crazy into detail. Chris, I just realized, funny because I said this before we hit record, we have a great video that goes in depth through reporting. Like, click here, get this, do that, change it this way. We'll include that with this recording. We're not going to go deep into all the details of this reporting because there's a lot. But what I wanted to hit here was just an overview of all your agent activity, leads that have come in, how many calls have they made, emails, texts, did those result in appointments? just a lot you can see, even just here. And everything blue and Follow Up Boss is a clickable link. So if you want to see the 3 calls that April made, you can click on that and it's going to take you right to those people. If you're in a state where you can have call recording on, you can listen to the calls. You could mention the agent, hey, great job following up with this guy, like whatever those things are. But really, the agent activity is a great place to start for a high level overview of what's going on.
I like that. And what if you just specifically wanted to look at calls or texts or appointments?
Yeah, so you can drill down into that, but there is a separate calls tab that I really, really love because this is the aggregate call information. So all your calls, your whole account, talk time, inbound calls, or the outbound, that's all here in aggregate. And same thing, you can click on it. But my favorite one I've been using more recently is this call logs. And this shows all the calls in your entire Follow Up Boss account, basically in chronological order. Inbound, outbound, team inboxes, direct cell phone, direct Follow Up Boss number, company Follow Up Boss number. And again, if you're allowed to have call recording on, you can listen to those calls. You can download them if you need to share it with somebody else or put it in a training thing. There's really a lot you can do here. And then texts have their own reporting.
And before we move too far along from the calls, listening to those pre-recorded calls that's such a good tool because it is so humbling to listen to yourself being recorded. I don't I don't like to listen. I do a lot of talking and I don't like to listen to it. But it really, I always compare it to a sports team. So if you're on the sports team, you're going to watch your tapes. You're going to be able to look at it through a post lens and go, I can tell exactly where I made a misstep. So I know role playing and scripting is a challenge with a lot of leadership. And if they aren't into role playing, get them to listen to their own recordings, get permission to share recordings of other people on the team. And that is supremely helpful in help coaching people up on what to say and how to navigate a conversation when they're under pressure.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great, great, great ad. So I wanted to hop into appointments reporting as well, real quick. Again, I'm here. There's filters you can use, but also a really powerful tool to just be like, what's going on? Like, what type of appointments do we have? What happened? Was it a buyer consultation? Really easy to work backwards from this data. Like, hey, somebody put listing one under a buyer consultation, but that's fine. It's a demo account.
Well, that actually is pretty more realistic. It's pretty
right.
realistic compared to it being perfect.
I thought it was a buyer lead, but yeah, so you can see all this here as well as some deeper marketing information. If you're using UTM parameters or if you're using certain Facebook ad or pay-per-click, you can even see what campaign some of these people came in on. So that's really handy. And then there's one thing I missed, sort of on purpose, but I want to head back to it. Under agent activity, there's 2 ways to find this. Leads we have not acted on is absolutely, if you have anyone in this, you should go do this right now. If you have any leads that are not acted on, this is a great opportunity. And we're going to head into this next kind of how to do some of this. Great opportunity for people to call. I just realized recently it's also at the top of the dashboard. So if you're logging into your dashboard, you're going to see if you have any unaction leads right here, and it'll take you right to them. I don't know why it says 0 and took me to 174, but it does work, I promise. And again, a great opportunity. You're looking for opportunities in your database. How about the people that never got a call?
Yeah, that's a quick way. When you're logging in the morning, touch your database, reach out to your people. Even if you don't do it every single day, you just do it a couple times a week, nudging your people, reaching out to them. Hey, I saw that this lead came in and no one got it. That tells your team, oh my gosh, she's watching, she's paying attention. So again, it would be great if you did it every day, be even better if you had someone to do it for you every day. However, giving them the feeling, even if you're not truly eyeballs deep in there every single day, that you understand what's going on. It helps that perception of you to be more connected with the work that they're actually doing. And that goes a long way to bolstering you as a respected leader. If they feel like they don't necessarily, they understand your position and they don't want you to be doing all the work. They want you, like I said, to be looking at the horizon and guiding them, but everyone wants to be understood. And so by you getting in and truly knowing your follow-up boss account, that helps them to feel understood if you're communicating about it like this.
Yeah, and I think so then, that's all lovely, right? It's great if we look at that and we know it and we have it, but then what? Like, what do we do? And I'm a really deep believer, and I've probably said this in a lot of our sessions on really that constructive, positive criticism, positive reinforcement. Hey, good job, you did this versus the why didn't you make your calls? Why didn't you do that? And this
Right.
is a great opportunity to use that to reframe, not like, why didn't you make these calls? Or you have five people, oh, there's five people you never called. What's wrong with you? Like, no one responds well to that.
Right.
But what if you said something more to the effect of, hey, I was digging through Follow Boss. I noticed there's five people in there you haven't reached out to yet. There may be a great opportunity in there. Why don't you give them a call today and let me know how it goes? That's a whole different thing than berating someone for not making their calls.
Right.
And it's going to create a cycle and a culture of them wanting to be like, "Ooh, I don't have any inaction lead. I don't have any inaction leads for you to remind me about because
Yep.
I want to be on that." And that's what you want to create. And it takes time and it takes consistency. And also, when there is constructive criticism to be given, be sure to give it in private in a tasteful way. Sometimes things can be lost too. This has been one of my big things recently. Things get lost in Slack and text and email. Like, if it really is something that you really need to like have a personal conversation about, it's worth picking up the phone or getting together or whatever. It's going to
Hmm.
pay way more dividends than sending a Slack message that's like, nah, you need to do this. You got to work on that. You should do like that's just not, it's not going to get you the results you want.
Yeah, exactly. So always criticize in private, praise in public. And I think that to your point, catching them doing something right. These are people that don't want to work for anyone, but know they have to a degree. They want to go it alone and have their own business. And I would say in the vast majority of brokerages and teams, they're not getting paid to show up every day. So there's only so much abuse. There's only
Right.
so much abuse they're going to
Right.
be willing to take before they'll go work for free somewhere else.
Always go here. Yeah, totally. That makes good sense. And we'll hop back into the product real quick because I want to go through a couple of things now. A lot of you probably know this, but under reporting, Follow Boss added agent goals somewhat recently, last year and a half. And this is also a great opportunity to pull in your actual Follow Boss data on appointments and pulling in from deals, but also to be able to, agents can come in here, as we've mentioned, like, and put in, I want to buy a new car, or I want to upgrade my house, or I want to, be able to do this, that, or the other. Really kind of an easy button for you as a leader to get people to fill this out. The data comes in automatically from Follow Boss. So when you're doing one-on-ones or meeting with somebody on things they can improve or things they're doing well, the agent goals is a bit of an easy button. You can say, hey, look, you had so many closed deals last year. You did this much volume. You've currently got this many leads. I mean, I think this is highly underutilized. A lot of people I talk to are like, oh, yeah, we're not really using that. And I'm like, well, you should.
You should. And I believe we also have a one-on-one guide. I'll make a note to send that out tomorrow. You
We
guys are
do.
gonna get a lot of goodies tomorrow when we send out the recording on this. But having that in addition to this, it lets them know that you're watching. It lets them know that you're in tune. You don't want to set those goals at the end of the year for the following year and then not speak about them. So following up with them to hold them accountable to what they said they wanted to do is really important. And that personal goal, it helps you get to know them a little bit more, whether it's they want to learn how to cook the perfect steak or they need to pay off their student loans. It lets you know a little bit more about where they're at and how you can meet them there.
And Chris, I love that you just said that way. We need to build that into more of our materials because I think, we understand that with a consumer lead, right? We understand we need to get to their motivation. We need to understand why are they moving? Like, are they happy about it? Are they sad about it? Are they getting a divorce? Like, what's happening in the situation that's going to affect what we need to know about how it's going to go? This is absolutely no different. What drives this agent? And something when I ran a team that was really interesting, understanding that was incredibly valuable because some people are just driven by money. They're just driven by being the top person or whatever. That's fine. That's great. I guarantee you not everyone's that way. And so there are people on your team that want to be there because they want to be part of a group. They want to have somebody to talk to. They don't want to be a lonely solo real estate agent. They may or may not even need leads. Like people enjoy being part of a group. And so understanding that their motivation is like, if their motivation is to be part of a group and you give them the culture award for the quarter or for the year, like that's going to be a huge deal to them versus the other dude who's just like, I don't care as long as I beat everybody else, like life is good. So understanding that motivation is really, really powerful and highly, highly recommended.
I love it.
And then we've got another easy. Oh, did you have something else on agent goals?
No, I was just going to talk about the leaderboard. So we're both so excited about the leaderboard. So the leaderboard is a great tool that summarizes all of this information. And if you have a brick and mortar location, if you have a monitor you can hook this up to, project this to. If you put it on full screen mode, it does this lovely scroll down. Ours probably won't do it because we don't have 200 agents in it. But it'll scroll down for you. It'll keep it moving. It updates in real time, which is fun. So if you're having a call session or power hour, whatever you call it, and everybody's coming in, they can see their numbers growing. And you can also hide people. So a little bit of what we were talking about earlier is making sure that you are presenting yourself in a certain way as a leader. And if you are a producing leader, your agents probably don't like seeing you at the top of the leaderboard because you are more than likely making more phone calls, doing a little bit more action than them if you're still in production. So if you're trying to cultivate this team underneath you, knock yourself off the leaderboard, make it about them. If you have an ISA that's just pounding the phones day in and day out, take them off the leaderboard. You can have a separate group and display your ISA leaderboard in that office or location. But take off anyone who is sort of designed to be at the top of the leaderboard. Just go ahead and remove them so that it's an even playing field. And this serves as a motivator instead of a reminder that you are making much more money than they are. But I love this tool and everything has the points. So another good thing you can do with this as a leader is make sure your team understands the point value and also make sure everyone's using it in the same way. So for instance, the appointments are a lot more points. Hover over for me, my brain's stopping.
I think 200, 500.
500 points, thank you. So appointments are a lot more heavily weighted than other items. So if you have these appointments, you want everyone using them in the same way. So if Lee and I are on a team and Lee sets an appointment for every piece of business. Oh, it's a list buy. I'm going to have 2 appointments. It's just a listing. I'm going to have 1 appointment per client. But me, hey, every time I meet with these people, it's an appointment. I made an appointment for Saturday to show houses. I made an appointment for Sunday to go to an inspection. I'm going to be at the top of the leaderboard because I'm going to have 500 appointments from all my showings and inspections, whatever, but Lee's using it in a completely different way. So we always talk about SOPs and definitions. Define what an appointment is for your team. Have it written out, have it be part of your office, your follow-up boss handbook policy, and have everyone use it in the same way. I always recommend that you have 1 appointment for every piece of business. So like I said earlier, if it's a list buy, it can be 2. If it's an investor, however many properties they're going to be closing on, and they're working on, that's appropriate. But don't do it for every Saturday you go out and shop with these people and you book an appointment for every showing you have. That doesn't create a clear and level playing field.
Yeah, that's great advice. And I wanted to mention something. We did this on a webinar long ago. I can't even remember I think it was a Follow Boss webinar, but Albert Vasquez was on with us and he shared what he does as far as um, leaderboard stuff. He probably technically does it more in the calls feature.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's focused on conversations. He wants to have, he's determined his metric is conversations. I want to have a 2 minute or more phone conversation with you for it to count. And so what he actually does is I think they use text or maybe Slack, but he'll actually send out a screenshot of this and be like, hey, well, Sally has had 3 conversations already so far, and Bobby's only had 1. Using it as a motivational tool, people will say like, oh, if Sally's got 3, I'm going to get 6. Like really driving people competitively, tastefully. It's funny because they're almost not even thinking about like, oh, right, I have to call these people and what am I going to say? And then I got to make a note and then probably follow up. And they're driven by the fact that they're being competitive with other people.
Mm-hmm.
On that. And I wanted to mention, this is a good way to see that, but to Chris's point on leaderboard, something I wanted to mention, if you are doing a call night or a prospecting time or something like that, you can actually change it to today and it will literally have a fresh start. Like, okay, fine that you're last coming into this, but we don't care. We're going to do call night. You go knock it out. You have a lovely fresh thing. And I just noticed this the other day. It actually has a countdown for how much time is left in that day. When you move to day, it starts counting down how much time is left in the day to make those calls. So, big fan of that.
Yeah, it's great. And if you have some people working from home or in the office, everyone can look at it and it updates in real time. So it helps you bridge that virtual hybrid gap if you're working on it.
This was a bad choice because the lead's technically on me, but I'll roll with it. So the next quick thing is as you find these opportunities, whether it's clicking through and reporting or a smart list, or you just find these, I think a lot of people know this, but it's valuable to mention. You can do an at mention. So in this case, I would just say, hey, Bridget, great job on this. Next time you talk, maybe send a buyer's guide. So again, like that constructive criticism or the constructive, feedback along with some sort of, oh, don't forget, like you could make them a buyer heat map going into your appointment, or you could create a cool market report for them next time you meet, or email it to them as an item of value. But using at mentions a really excellent way to do this. And if you're not familiar with this, what it does, it will give them a notification otherwise, but typically, depending on notification settings, it'll send them an email with the note with a link to the contact. So they can literally click that email, open that contact, and do the thing. So at mentions, highly recommended. Obviously, it's not quite like a Slack level tool, different channels, all that thing, but it's tied to the contact and a really great, just a great feature, I think, to use to encourage or remind agents.
And that's another way to show them that you're really in the accounts. You're really taking a look at what's going on in here and you're keeping an eye on things like that. The accountability piece, the unspoken level of accountability there, even if you are saying, hey, I really liked this phone call. That message says a heck of a lot more than, oh, she liked the phone call. It's, oh, she's going through my stuff. She's listening to my phone calls and she's paying attention. So,
yep, absolutely. And I did jump ahead on one thing. I got excited about the at mention because I was in a client record. But this is something I won't bore you guys with the story yet again, but using something like your lead source reporting or even your deals or appointment reporting to understand lead sources and or agent connection. I'll give the short version of my story. We had an agent that closed a lot of Realtor.com leads, and I was able to figure that out through some reporting and say, hey, you know what? I'm just going to route all the Realtor.com leads to him. And it was great. So point being, using this reporting to say, oh, look, like Jim somehow, I don't know why, Jim seems to be good at closing leads off our website. Sally seems to be really good at closing Facebook leads. Follow Boss makes it incredibly easy to say, well, I'm going to send more of those leads to that person. And
Right.
so another super powerful use of this tool is to figure out getting the right leads to the right people. Is going to
Or
really pay dividends.
or making sure, if someone's like, yeah, I love to call FISBOs, and then they bomb every single one, you don't want someone throwing dynamite in your fishing pond. So getting the right people in the right places and making sure that they are getting what they excel at, because there's so many different personalities and different people are drawn to others for different reasons, which is good because it helps you have a very diverse client base. But being able to look for those trends and using your follow-up boss tools is so, it makes it so easy, like you said.
Absolutely. And speaking of staying consistent in what you're expecting and what you're looking at, what you're saying to people, maybe goes without saying, but I feel like it bears saying. It's really important to just be consistent in that. Like you can't be checking their calls for a week one day and then never check them again or whatever. That's not going to get you the result you want. So just being consistent with that. Something I'm a big fan of, this seems to be a recurring theme lately too, potentially re-onboarding people. I think a lot of us have built the system over time and there's been changes and we've done trainings and we've done things like that. But sometimes just re-onboard, it's a fresh start. Like, hey, we're going to run everybody through this training. We're going to do this. We're going to make sure they know how to log, or make sure they have the app. We're going to make sure
Mhm.
they're in stars so they can do an open house, like all those things. Re-onboarding is an excellent idea that I think you're going to hear. I know I'm going to be saying a lot more about it this year. It's just a great way to get people who are kind of into old habits or maybe been with you for a while who kind of aren't on the bus or aren't on the plan. A really
Mhm.
good way to kind of get them, back up and also kind of giving everybody a fresh start, right? Like it's okay that you don't know this now. We maybe didn't do a good job of training you initially. Now we're going to make sure everybody knows and is on the same page. And that just feels good too.
Yeah, I love that. And we actually have several great free resources that can help you with this. We have a using follow-up boss course that is free, and you can put yourself, your teammates, whoever into it and take the course, and it sends you a certificate of completion at the end that you can have your team members email you for accountability purposes. And we also have a playlist on YouTube that is very much agent facing. So the way agents use Follow Up Boss, it's some best practices and tips there. So I'll include that with the recording tomorrow as well. But whether it's using our free resources or other things that you find online, keeping that reiterative training in front of them is really crucial, because sometimes even in my own work, if I get frustrated, I'm like, "Ugh, I'm not going to do that." It gets out of my habit. And then I'll discover, oh my gosh, weeks have gone by and I need to get back on the horse. So just imagine if you trained once on how to use your Follow Up Boss account and then you never went back through training. It's really good. And there's all kinds of aha moments to be found. So
Yeah, for sure. And I dropped a link to that course in there if anybody wants to grab that, and we'll email out the link to with that playlist. Um, yeah, no, then also just having this is really simple and actually some of our good friends from Spyglass Realty talked about this at FubCon. Adding your agents to Follow Up Boss as contacts as a
mhm.
way to make sure you're consistently reaching all of them. You can send batch emails internally to your own people. You can send batch emails with those permalinks to reporting. Hey, make sure you don't have any unactioned leads. There's a lot you can do with this. One of the cool things Spyglass did is set it up to where it was tied to last communication. So
Mhm.
they wanted to make sure they're pretty big now. They wanted to make sure that someone in leadership reached out to everyone in the company over the course of a month or 2 weeks or whatever it was. But they had that set in a way that was really cool to just make sure that everybody got touched. Because again, the bigger you get, like you don't want to forget, especially the non-squeaky wheels. So just putting them here as contacts. One pro tip on that, you probably will create duplicates, but probably in a good way. You're going to want a record that's tied to them as an agent
Mhm.
versus their little test lead where they called themselves or they send themselves property alerts, they want to be on the email list or whatever. So you may create duplicates, but I would recommend that. Make the source like team member, make it a congruent contact instead of a test
Right.
for the whole company.
And you can put them, putting them in your CRM in an agent pond that's partitioned off from the other agents so no one can accidentally email them or send them anything is really good. But you can use that as part of your recruiting and retention strategy. Like have your recruiting pond, and then once you onboard them, move that lead to your agent pond.
Right.
And
And then you got the reporting on how many calls did it take, how many meetings did it take before they joined.
Exactly. So using this to send out your weekly newsletter, if you have some type of weekly or monthly internal communication, you can use that for the batch emails, and it won't skew your last communication numbers because it's in a batch. But one of my agents, their dog passed away, and I set reminders through the system to follow up with them, and that really it really made a big difference. They told everyone about it. And it was just, it was something they told me in passing. I knew it meant a lot to them, but I wrote it down. I was like, follow up with them about their dog passing away. And man, I would never have really remembered with having a ton of agents that, you're sort of drinking from a fire hose with the amount of information that you carry around in your brain with you, but it helps you maintain those really personal connections. And of course, you're not going to say, oh, well, my follow-up boss note says to ask you about your dog.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, you're still going to use our brains a little bit. But no, that's a great example. I think there are things like that that are important. And, making notes in the system on things like that that you may want to remember when you do reach out. Again, if it's internally, same difference. You still want to know what you're talking about, have a good conversation. Couple quick things before we wrap. I'll go maybe a little bit rapid fire here on this. Something I like to check first when I even log into somebody's Follow Up Boss account new for the very first time. Admin teams is always going to have a list. You may have multiple teams. Yours may look like this, or yours may just have the one. But one of the great things about this is it shows you the last time that each of your users has logged in on desktop and on mobile. And this is a really excellent thing. Again, this is a demo account, but it's a really excellent way to understand, are they using the system? Do they have the mobile app? Do they use it? You can see all of that right here. And that's a really excellent tool. Just to how often are they has somebody not logged in for 5 days? Maybe you should take them off leads if they haven't logged in for 5 days.
Maybe we should reroute those leads that we're sending to them.
Just saying.
And that's not only rerouting leads, but if they have it if they've gone MIA and you haven't logged in whatever length of time you determine is how frequently you want them logging in, turn off their access to ponds. And that's a really great conversation starter I've found is, you know what? You missed the sales meeting. You stopped showing up to the office. I see you aren't logging in. I'm going to turn off your access to the ponds. And, sometimes a day would go by and I'd get a phone call. I can't see any of my leads. Oh, hello.
Oh,
where have you been?
Oh, you're working?
That's why you can't see any of your leads. You want to, what's going on? Are you okay? We've been worried, or it might take them 3 weeks to call and say, hey, where are all my leads? And that's another good conversation starter, an indicator that, hey, we can't have this where you're disappearing for weeks at a time. So it really sort of forces that conversation. And then you know what to do if they never call.
Right. We don't need to say it. That's on you. We can't help you with that.
That's for you to run your exit process.
Yeah, absolutely. And we kind of mentioned this before, but I did want to cover it again. We talked about the app mentions on the phone calls or using maybe call log to check some of those phone calls. But if and when you do, again, a good opportunity to potentially hop in, make that app mention and say, hey, great job, or next time you could say this, or next time, follow up with an email after your phone call, whatever those things are.
Right.
But just can't recommend that enough. That's how it ended up in here twice.
I love it.
And I also mentioned this at the top, but Chris, I'll let you take this one, I think, because since I said it already.
Oh, exactly. the theme here today is you don't have to use Follow Up Boss every single day, but understanding it as well as your agents do, the concepts of it, having some additional training, tons and tons of resources are available to you. Just start. If you aren't as active in Follow Up Boss as you should be as a leader, just go ahead and get started. And it's easy for you to get on that level of respect with your agents because they feel like you're working alongside them. People really love that about a leader. And they also love it when you help them identify opportunities that are falling through the cracks. You can quickly go through your own Follow Up Boss account and check for these leads. And Lee's going to show us how in just a second, and say, hey, I noticed this. So that's going to help give them a layup of something that is falling through, but it's also going to help you get more ROI out of your investment, which is your CRM and all the leads that you're putting in it.
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, I'm gonna do just a super quick, and then we got one more thing, and then we'll wrap up here. But I mentioned already the unactioned. That's a real easy button, whether you hit the unactioned here or go to reporting agent activity. There's a leads not acted on. To find that. So that's obviously a bit of an easy button, but similar things just in using at a high level your filtering. So coming in here, making sure that any filters are off, just doing things like, looking for, say, a lead that has a good phone number, like that has a good phone number with emails that have bounced. Just drilling down to be like, okay, yeah, the agents are leaning on the action plans, but guess what? This person has a bad email, but they have a phone number and no one's called them in 30 days. So drilling down into those little pieces is really important. And then the other thing I like to do sometimes is just sort by created. I've been doing this with a lot of people recently, making it what I would call a QA list or a check list. Just all the leads in your system by the date they were created. Like as an owner, what a great, easy way to just be like, all right, here's the most recent lead we got. Let's see what happened. Okay, here's the next most recent lead we got. Let's see what happened. Make an at mention, do the thing, reassign it if nobody's called it, whatever those things are. But again, if you're going to check your reporting every 7 days, just simple as having a smart list of all of your leads in order is a really good way to go back and just find, oh, this slipped through the cracks, or oh, this didn't happen, or oh, so-and-so said they were going to call them back tomorrow and they didn't. So I'm going to reassign it, or I'm going to call them, or whatever your MO is.
Right.
But it really is easy to drill down into, show me people that were created 10 years ago and never had a phone call and have been on our website in the last 2 years. Super easy to get a list.
Right. Exactly. The more you poke around, the more you're going to find. So you're not going to break anything. Log in, look, sort the columns, move things around, and look for trends, because this is a very sophisticated, complex system. And if one of your zaps is broken or a link isn't working and an email starts bouncing and whatever, it sort of starts to creep like a vine and it spreads to other things. So that's why our clients pay us to monitor their accounts for them, is because of this. We look for these things. We actively look not only for deals, but the inner workings. So even if you at a leadership level aren't the database manager, you can still have a different set of eyes on this to see if something feels off to you. And then you can take it to them and go, hey, this is weird. Look into this for me.
Yep. And that takes us right into the last point, which is kind of going through the smart list as your agent. So for example, speaking of, I was just thinking of that example of that person that's sitting there in hot. Like if you got somebody that's been in the hot stage for 7 months, then like they're probably not hot. So speaking of things to look for, but what's cool is when you're in, let's just say these are your smart lists, typically if you're the owner or an admin level, you're going to have a drop down here. You'll probably be on everyone by default, but you can drop down by pond, by anything, by team. In this case, we're going to do user. I'll pick on Bridget because she might actually have somebody in some of these lists. So now I'm seeing Bridget's #1 smart list. And I can go, oh, look, great. She's only got 5 people in it. Or great. Hopefully she's got 0 people in it if it's a smart list 0. But this is somewhat sticky in the sense that now I can go through all the smart lists and basically see what that particular agent is seeing. So you can understand, are they at smart list 0? Are they buried? Do they have 4,000 leads in one smart list? A really kind of easy way to, you're not impersonating them, but to kind of come in and see more what they see and understand, are they doing the things they need to do? Are they knocking these things out? And again, making an app mention, adding a tag to like remind you to check it tomorrow, whatever those things are for you. But I think being able to work through your agent smart list in this way is a really smart way to be able to understand what they're doing and what they're seeing.
I love it. I love it. So action items, takeaways, log in, use your follow-up boss.
Do it.
Use our free resources to boost your knowledge and let us help you train your team, because it's always so helpful to have my sun shining through my window. It's so helpful to have that third party voice come in, because I've told them 1,000 times. Well, let us tell them the 1,001th time, and they might get it. It might drive the needle forward for you. And we're going to send you this in a checklist. Implement some of these strategies. You don't have to do everything, but little steps you can take to hold your team more accountable to your system, stay more in tune with what's going on, and build up some habits. And you'll see that you're converting better because you're better in tune with what's going on.
Absolutely.
We'll be sending this out tomorrow with links to everything we talked about today. So
Beautiful. Thank you guys for being on. That was appreciated. Chris, you rock as always.
you rock. Thanks for everything.
We'll do it again
Thanks
sometime.
for your time, y'all.
See y'all.
Bye.